Syrian Arab Army achieves new victories in fighting terrorism in Homs and Deir ez-Zor. The Egyptian government submits its resignation to the interim president as the army tightens its grip on hotbeds of terrorists north of Sinai. Venezuelan president prepares to launch a national dialogue for peace to contain violence. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Iranian Assistant Foreign Minister for Arab and African Affairs Hossein Amir Abdullahian asserted that fighting terrorism and extremism, finding a political solution for the crisis in Syria, and providing humanitarian assistance to the Syrian people are priorities for Iran's policy. During his meeting with the envoy of the Belgian government to Syria, Abdullahian said that right from the beginning of the crisis in Syria, Iran has provided food and medical assistance to the Syrian people, and that it is ready to cooperate with Belgium in this field. For his part, the Belgian envoy asserted the importance of coordination and finding mechanisms to work with the Syrian and Iranian Red Crescent, as well as with the rest of the European countries that are willing to provide assistance to the Syrian people. Russian President Vladimir Putin said that the Winter Olympic Games in Sochi proved the durability of the traditional national sports and demonstrated that Russia is a modern and culturally varied country. In statements during the ceremony for honoring the Russian Olympics team, Putin said that the aim of Sochi Olympics was not only presenting modern sports facilities and infrastructure, but also showing the distinguished national sports which carry the banner of the tradition. People were injured in a mortar shell attack by terrorists on the residential neighborhood in Jaramana of Damascus countryside. Police said that 7 mortar shells were fired by terrorists on the neighborhood of Al-Jam'iyat and Al-Baladiya, as well as on Al-Suyuf Square, the main square and the street of schools, injuring 8 citizens and inflicting material damage in the school of Martyr Zahi al-Samin and a number of houses. In Aleppo, Syrian Arab Army eliminated the terrorist hideouts in Al-Castillo, Al-Sukkari, the vicinity of Al-Zerzur Hospital, the Old City, and Bustan al-Qasr. Syrian Arab Army units also killed a number of terrorists in the villages and towns of Hretan, Hayyan, Rasm al-Aboud, Jdedat Queres, and the vicinity of the central prison, destroying a store of ammunition used by the armed terrorist groups in Daret Azza. Syrian Arab Army units also destroyed vehicles loaded with weapons and ammunition in the industrial city and the villages of Abtin. Meanwhile, Syrian Arab Army fended off a terrorist attack on the citizens of Khan Touman town, killing many terrorists. Syrian Arab Army pounded terrorist gatherings in the factories of Al-Sheikh Said, destroying their anti-rocket and various kinds of weapons and ammunition. In Hama countryside, the Syrian Arab Army units targeted terrorist gatherings in Morek town, eliminating dozens of them, injuring others and destroying their weapons and ammunition. Moreover, the Syrian Arab Army units targeted the terrorist gatherings in villages of Al-Dar al-Kubra and Al-Khalidiyya in the northern countryside of the governorate. The Syrian Arab Army units also secured the basic needs of the villages that the armed terrorist groups controlled, like Al-Rastan and Talbisa. In their resort, the Syrian Arab Army unit eliminated a number of terrorists in Al-Mari'iyya and Hawajat al-Mari'iyya hills. France 24 website revealed that the so-called Syrian Abu Khalid, who is a leader of Al-Qaeda, was killed in a suicide attack carried out by a member of the so-called State of Islam in Iraq and the Levant. The attack took place in the hideout of the terrorist group Ahrar al-Sham in the neighborhood of Al-Halak in Aleppo. He had very close ties with Al-Qaeda's former leader Osama bin Laden and also with the current leader al-Zawahiri, who gave him the directives to carry out the task of arbitration between the ISIS and al-Nusra in order to stop the fighting between them. The Egyptian government headed by Hazem al-Babalawi gave its resignation to the interim president Adli Mansour in the framework of fighting terrorism and targeting the terrorist gatherings to the north of Sinai. The Egyptian army eliminated 14 terrorists and arrested 23 others. The Egyptian forces also destroyed 24 terrorist hideouts, which they used to carry out attacks against the army and the police. In Libya, thousands of citizens in the city of Benghazi demonstrated against expanding the expired mandate of the General National Conference. Demonstrators also protested against the chaos in Libya and demanded accountability for those who contributed in issuing forged passports, an incident which raised anger among the Libyans and urged them to call for expelling the ambassadors of both Qatar and Turkey and for the closure of their embassies, as well as for expelling the correspondents of Al Jazeera from Libya. Controlling the capital Kiev and its governmental institutions by force, the Ukrainian opposition ousted the legitimate Ukrainian President Yanukovych and demanded his trial after the opposition dominated the parliament and asked to assign an interim president to the country. The signs of the American support to the Ukrainian opposition revealed by the coup on the legitimate rule, the matter that contradicted the signed agreement between the two sides that calls to make presidential and parliamentary elections. On the stances of the opposition leaders as they started with stopping teaching the Russian language in the country's schools and announced joining the European Union. Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro announced a national dialogue to be launched during this week due to demonstrations and violence acts that resulted to the death and injury of many citizens. On the other hand, the Venezuelan president threatened to expel the American television news network CNN from Venezuela if it did not correct its reports that aim to distort the facts of the current situation in the country. China has denounced the appointment of a special envoy for the affairs of the Tibet, as the U.S. asserting its complete rejection of any foreign interference in its domestic affairs. Noteworthy is that the Chinese government has already stated that the U.S. was flagrantly interfering in its domestic affairs, adding that the American administration had to take steps to avoid more damage of the bilateral relations. That was it for our political news, but stay tuned after the break with the business and markets news.